Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs, and our subjects. Today is June the 6th, 2024 on the ancient moon calendar, 2025 on the ancient sun calendar, 10,066 on the ancient Yoruba calendar, and 5784 on the Hebrew Israelite calendar. All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity and in alignment and accordance with the ancient Noahide laws as stated by this Holy Congress. This is a sovereign living ancient Article 3, Moorish American Al-Moroccan Universal Court Action. We are the divine sovereign living justices, and Eggleston Pauline Denise Ritchie, my free chosen sovereign appellation is like Tajiri Bay. All are in capitis diminution nolo in red ink, in proprio persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. We are capite et corpus juris legalis, which is our statement that we are the lawful and legal natural head and body for our empire. All Moors are the divine, original, indigenous, sovereign, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet, and of the ancient Moabites, Canaanites, Shemites, Cushites, Israelites, and Hittites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our honor, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural divine, sovereign, ancient empire state for Morocco. We're the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government. We are ancient Washington District for Columbia. We're the Universal Moorish American Consulate and the Earthwide Article 3 Moorish American Consular Court. Today, we are being the law by our sovereign status, which is the original indigenous, natural divine, sovereign ancient Article 3 living United States District for Columbia Court. And we are the sovereign fiduciaries, original creditors, executors, trustees, divine ministers, possessors, grantors, and title trustors for all causes for action. We are peace, we are one nation, we are one state, we are one empire, and we are one God. We hereby recognize ourselves and accept our sovereign divine ascension. We do possess in our custody all land, all natural resources, and all commerce. We, the true living God nation, are not at war. We are not at war. We are not at war. And we exercise and demonstrate all eternal, ancient, original sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, nunc pro tunc. So we will to share our screen to state a few things for the record as well. Today is the full not the full moon, the new moon. And for that, we are grateful. We're going to use the energy from the new moon, rather. Just one moment. Oh, that's why. Okay. So we'll be using that energy. Now, the way that we use full moon energy is anything that you want to grow, you should plant it around this time. Or, for example, if you want your hair to grow, you would clip the ends around this time, today, tomorrow, over the weekend, over the next few days, to harness the energy of the new moon. So when the new moon comes, you don't see the moon at all. And then as the moon is growing into the full moon, everything that we do happens. It connects with that growth energy and it grows too. Other cultures have been using our moon magic information such as this to grow themselves and to grow their businesses and to grow their hair and to grow their crops and everything. So it is time for us to take that information and our science back and use it for ourselves. So if you're starting businesses, the new moon time is the best time to introduce the start of your business. If you want bank deposits to grow, you would save all of your deposits for new moon time. And the new moon is generally, for example, this is the beginning of June. This is June 6th. So this is the first week, the first 7 days of June. This is new moon time. This is usually when deposits are made for those who are merchants. They make either an end of month deposit or a beginning of the month deposit. And that is where new moon energy comes into play. So even in the previous era, businesses who knew our science would use our astrological and cosmological science to grow whatever they were doing. Okay. If you're going to be creating contracts or things of that nature, now is a good time to do so, and all other. With that being stated, our will for this Congress is that each and every one of us orients to where we are on the land and to our true status and identity in terms of all the things that we do. So earlier this week, I saw a short clip by the subject who was doing business as Warren Buffett, and we know that he is a subject of the Moors. And this particular subject was saying something about orientation and making sure that you are properly orientated. So I started looking into that word, orientation. And if for those who in the previous era enacted working for the quote unquote government in the previous era, you always had an orientation beforehand. And at this orientation, people would take an oath to that particular organization, whatever that organization was, and they would say the Pledge of Allegiance. They would take a pledge and an oath to that organization, whatever it was. And so what the purpose of the orientation was is to let them know where they are and what kind of atmosphere it is and how they should do things. Okay, so that is what orientation is all about. It's to orient or to get people familiar with where they are, what the culture is, what the atmosphere is, how things are done. And so it became clear to me, or clearer to me and to us, that when you know that you're on your own ancient land and you orient yourself that way, then everything else becomes just it's second nature, or first nature rather, for you to just demonstrate who you are. And anyone who might be having an issue with that, you already know, you feel comfortable explaining that. So for us, we just oriented ourselves right back to where we were initially. And here's the thing. Our Prophet Noble Ali stated that at this time period that our brothers from the East were going to come to assist us. Well, when you look at the latitudes at Earth, and we've mentioned this several times before, when you look at the latitudes at Earth is this atmosphere, this hemisphere, what was called the Western Hemisphere, is actually the Middle Eastern latitudes at Earth. So when you look at the Earth And at the latitudes that run what would have been east to west, you will see that this hemisphere is located actually in the Middle East. So up and down, Middle East, or up and down and right and left, this is the Middle East. So we are actually our own brothers from the East. We're helping ourselves. We're saving ourselves. So when Noble Phoenix put something in the chat, he said he never had to take an oath of any sort in 30 years of corporate America. I guess it was because these were non-government companies, just as you mentioned. That's correct. When I went to work for the VA, quote unquote, in Durham, North Carolina, at orientation, they brought out the banner the banner of Amity and Commerce. This is not the same one. This is the banner for Amity and Commerce. They brought out the banner, and everybody had to put their hand over their heart, and then they had to raise their right hand and all of that stuff. So we just, that was something that and it also depended on what your job was. Okay. So with that being stated, our question is, were you financially irresponsible in the previous era? Now, there's a reason why we're asking that particular question. First is to bring about an awareness. Is to bring about an awareness, and also it is to get you to bring up some energies that we will to clear. We want to clear some energy. So just a moment. Okay, I guess I'll just have to do it from here, which is fine. Just a moment. Let me clear up. I did not put that link in the chat, so I'm going to boot the one who put it in the chat, and I'll also just get rid of those that are commenting in that manner. Okay, just a moment. Let me clear that up really quickly. Easy peasy. Let's see. Let's find out who else is putting stuff in there. Okay. Really quickly. Oh, there it is. Okay, got it. All right. So we will to deal with the energy of financial irresponsibility simply because we have, first of all, we've moved beyond that type of energy. Okay, that's number one. Number two, because we have accessed our estate financially, it is going to be important that we rid ourselves of any energies that have to do with financial irresponsibility. And there's a way to do that that we would love to show you at this point. So here, let me we'll do is so you can unmute yourselves. And I know this is not a question that most people would be willing to answer, especially if you were financially irresponsible in the previous era. But we have to remember we were not taught how to use money in the previous era. So even those of us who did pretty well,
why haven't you gotten
in
the or cell service? Why haven't you gotten anything?
Those who did really well in the previous era, and really well is relative.
It's a wrap. Aisha's evicted on June 17th. Bye-bye, Aisha.
We do have a few haters that are hating, but we love them, and we're going to continue on. So we were not taught how to use money. Why? Because that was not our money. That was not our money from the previous era. So what we will to do. Islam, is there? Because someone's line is open. Just a moment. Okay. What we will to do is forgive yourself for any financial irresponsibility from the previous era. One moment. There's a line at Michigama territory that's opening, that continues to open. Were you going to make a statement? Okay. So, forgive yourself for that so that you can prosper and grow your estate this era with precision, with clear eyes, with clear minds, and perfect execution. So that's what we're talking about here momentarily, is that we all, everyone, because we were not taught how to use money, okay, this is the time to clear that energy. It must be cleared so that you can prosper. Clearing that energy means doing whatever inner work you have to do so that you don't feel guilty, so that the way that you esteem yourself is in alignment with who you really are. We are the gods at earth, and we're the bloodline and birthright from ancient times, from the great pharaohs of Kemet. And the ancient Moabites and Canaanites and Israelites and Shemites and so on and so forth. So all of the noble families, the families of wealth and means and nobility. So we must forgive ourselves for anything that happened in the previous era. And all of us at this particular time are seeing the residuals of that previous era and the financial decisions that we made. So, for example, there are some Moors who are barely or were barely making it because in that previous era they were not taught how to use money because that wasn't real money. And and as they're freeing themselves, they're still living, in a way that is beneath their rights.
You are a great storyteller there, Pauline. Really, really good storyteller. The amount of bullshit is just incredible.
So those that are still living that particular type of a scenario, you forgive yourself for that. Forgive yourself and let that energy go so that you can think clearly and see clearly and then execute clearly as we move forward. And all that has to do with us is only going to get better and better and better from here. Period. It's only going to get better from here because we know what we know. And we're going to show you a couple of things here in that manner. So guilt and shame and condemnation are not favorable energies. Okay, guilt, shame, condemnation, and I'll say this about those feelings. The shadows of low energy that you've been hearing, who come and they try and interrupt what we're doing, and they try and interrupt the flow and interrupt the energy. They are trying to put that kind of energy on you because they already know that you've won. They already know that everything belongs to us. They know that already. And so they're trying their last little bit of because they don't have anything else. They don't have anything that can kick a door in and all of that stuff. They don't have any of that stuff for many of us. And everyone is coming out of that. Everyone is coming out of that. And so they would to try and use guilt and shame and condemnation and things like that because they know those energies are only fed by ego. Or not just ego, but oversized ego, because ego is a good energy too. We use it, but it's just in its proper proportion. So as it stands now, you who are of the bloodline and birthright, first and foremost, to you first, your slate is clean. Your wealth slate is clean. Your estate slate is clean. Your money slate is clean. You now have a new life with the processes. Go ahead and rebut all of that stuff and keep moving. Rebut all debt and keep moving. Treasure and wealth and prosperity and abundance is our new lives. That is part of our new lives in our estate. Okay. So with that being stated, just a moment.
You're fucking delusional if you think any of this is real. Fucking delusional. You are absolutely delusional.
If you hear that's what we're talking about in terms of, but they're insane because they keep doing the same thing expecting a different result. They're expecting us to, I don't know, feel some kind of way about what they're saying. We don't. We just keep moving. Because we know that they're insane. Those are actual mental patients. The ones that come in and do that, they are literally mental patients from the insane asylum. And the only reason they come here is because they have nothing else to do. They are literally patients. They are in straitjackets and things. They're mentally insane. So with that being stated, are there any questions, comments, or wisdom about anything that we've stated thus far, particularly this topic? Islam, Empress.
Okay, I'm going to take a big risk. So I had a way that I would move towards people in trust and respond when they said they needed something from me financially, and give it with a promise from them that it would come back, and it didn't come back. And at some point, it waylaid my process of saving money and so on. And even when I got into difficulty with my debt cards, it was because somebody who I treasured took my resource and spent it, and then I was left on the hook to pay that back. And that is about my oversight, my inability to see clearly that I was trusting someone because my heart was open, not because necessarily they were trustworthy around that.
Yeah.
So here I am in this new era, moving towards mooring myself to the land, and thinking about this pattern or this habit within me, where I may again trust the wrong person.
Everybody else, she fucks them. You got fucked. Just
go ahead and
trust the wrong person with a resource that they're not actually trustworthy about, because I don't have the insight or the oversight to see that they should not be trusted with that, because my heart is open to them. So here I am walking into a new place and questioning myself about, do I have the reserve? Do I have the insight? Do I have the ability to see clearly that this one can be trusted and that one can't in relation to a financial resource as I move forward with my wealth and my prosperity, and having forgiven myself those mistakes and not wanting to make the same mistakes again. I'm going to stop there. I yield. Thank you for hearing me.
Islam, thank you, Empress, thank you for your honesty and your willingness to be open. I will say this about that and about trust. I trust everyone. I trust every one of you. I trust all of you. I trust you all. But let me tell you why it's so easy for me to trust you. And this is not about you. This is about some things I learned about trust. I learned that when I have my stuff together, I don't have to worry about trust. I don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to, let's say a purse for an example. Let's say, everyone is in a room. There are new people coming in, and there are people who we've always known each other. So there's just this whole mix of people from everywhere. I can say that I trust everybody in the room, because guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to leave my purse on the table, even though I could if I felt like it. But I'm not going to leave it on the table wide open and go all off into other rooms and things like that. I'm just not going to do that, because that's not what a smart heir would do. That's not what a wise empress would do. Solomon would not do that. Solomon would ensure that everything is in the proper place according to protocol. So it's not even about trusting other people. It's about being wise. It's about wisdom. Wisdom makes it so that you can trust everybody, because you don't have to trust if they're going to go in your purse because you left your purse out. You don't have to worry about that, because you're wise. You're wise. You're smart with all that you have. Because guess what? You've been entrusted with all that you have by the ancestors within you. And when our ancestors trust us, that means we're going to make wise decisions. We're going to do wise things. We're not going to do things that will endanger us. We're not going to leave our children out on, in the cold and just be like, oh, the ancestors will take care of them. No, the ancestors put me here to do that. They put us here to take care of and have dominion over and all of that. So I don't ever worry about trusting people because I don't have to trust people with things that I'm wise about. I can trust them because that's not even going to be a temptation. It's not going to be a temptation. It's not going to be an issue. It's not going to be a problem because I've taken care of my business. Because the ancestor trusted me with that. They expect me to protect what they have entrusted me with. And same thing for you all. I know I am trustworthy. So people have left purses and wallets and things around me, and they had no issues with it whatsoever. And some of them were shocked because they never been around people that they could do that with. However, in my mind, if I saw that, I'm thinking, okay, then they probably still have maybe they forgot it or something. I don't know. But okay, they're going to have to be more careful with that. Even though I'm trustworthy, not everybody may be like that. But see, they don't have to worry about who's trustworthy and who's not when they take care of their business. So that's to me, the ancestors simplified that part all day, every day. And that's why I can be as open and as because I don't have to worry, because I've done my part to be a wise and wise and just intelligent steward, heir, custodian, owner, empress, leader of the process, not of people, but of the process. Things are what they should be, And then I'll say this about people who may have had that issue of they trusted, 99%, maybe not all, but 99% of the people who kept having things taken, it was being taken by the same people over and over because someone loved someone or someone wanted to trust someone, or something of that nature. They can't really, 99% of the people can't claim to be a victim because they continue to do it even after the first time. After the first time that someone broke trust, people would let them talk them back into doing the same thing over again, and they got plenty of times in a row before they decided that, okay, I'm not going to trust them anymore. I'm not going to trust them anymore. Okay? So with that being stated, most people are not victims. Most people are willing participants in things like that. Willing participants. And we just have to decide not to be willing participants. We have to decide not to be that. That's a decision that we make, and that has a lot to do with zodiacs and birth charts and things like that as to who will continue to let people take advantage of them and who won't. Who will say, because there are some zodiac signs that once you break trust, it's over. You'll never be given that much rope to hang yourself on again. They won't let you keep doing that. There are others who are not so much, in terms of they will let you do that half your life before they say, okay, enough is enough, So this time around is not like the last time. This time is different from the previous era. We have a lot more that's involved. We know who we are, and it's not even a matter of, oops, I didn't know, because we do know. This time around, we know. So we can't blame someone else. We actually have to take responsibility and then keep moving. Keep moving. And so, we must forgive ourselves for all that happened in the previous era. Forgive ourselves and forgive each other. If you had things going on with other people in your kinship, or divorces and things of that nature, none of that stuff was culturally appropriate for us. It was not. Having a contract with a foreign state and talking about you're married and feeding your babies to that foreign beast, that's not culturally, we did not do that. And fortunately, we don't have to do it this go round because we have everything. We've created everything anew.
Your funny money's never going to work. Fiat is alive and well. Your money's.
Now, we know that what we're doing works because they keep trying to say it doesn't. So we know it does. So with that being stated, let's just take a moment, to put forth the energy of forgiveness, because this is about energy. It's about energy. Everything that we do is about energy. So let's just take a moment to forgive. All we have to do is just think the word forgive 3 times. Just think it. So let's take about 30 seconds to just take quietly forgive. Any faces that you see, forgive. Any people that did anything to you in the previous era that you're having a hard time with. Because, see, you're going to need that energy to clearly govern your wealth. And we don't want to, we do not will to go back into poverty because of unforgiveness. So let's just take about 30 seconds right now quietly and just think the word forgive. I forgive. I forgive. I forgive. I forgive. Islam. Okay. Whew. And rid your lives completely of any of these: guilt, shame, condemnation, unforgiveness. When you sense those energies trying to creep around, clear that energy so that you can see and hear the spirit within you. Very important, especially where finance is concerned, especially where wealth and estates are concerned, especially because, see, we have a lot of giving to do. We have more than anyone else at Earth. Let's just make that clear. We have some giving to do, and we will to just be able to do that freely, no matter who it is, of course, using intellect and using wisdom with our giving. But yes, indeed, it does feel good, Justice Akil. It feels good. to forgive. Just forgive. Let it go. Forgive. Because when you realize how large your estate is, we don't sweat the small stuff. We don't sweat anything really, but particularly things bygone in the past. And guess what, Moors? We must forgive for those Moors who still think that it was about modern Europeans. It wasn't about them. Forgive them. It was never about them. It was always about you. Always. So you can just let that energy go and go ahead and enjoy your wealth. And enjoy growing your wealth and expanding your wealth. Got a few things to show you regarding that. And we've posted this and stated this previously, but let's bring it up again. Benjamin Franklin said, "When people discover they can vote themselves money, that is the end of the republic." Alexander Fraser Tytler said, "A democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates promising the most benefits from the public treasury." Everyone knows the public treasury has no end, because we're always birthing babies. There's no end. As long as we can birth children, the treasury continues. And now it is up to us to use wisely all that comes. And why am I talking about the public treasury? Because there was an attempt to get us to run in the opposite direction from the public treasury based on one specific arm of government that everyone said was bad. Oh, they're bad. You don't want to, knowing that they were all eating off of that one particular arm of government. When the people find that will herald the end of the republic. So we're going to tell you today what that really means. We're going to show you what that means. Just a moment. Let me see if maybe I can get this computer working here. Just a moment. Okay, it's working fine. This is good. So we will to show you, starting with the link to a video. And I'll put this link in the chat. This is a video that I watched today that gave me the rest of the information that I was looking to connect. I willed to make the connection financially between us and those that were previously doing business as super wealthy and capitalism. Okay. because I knew that that was the connection that was necessary so that we have a clear understanding and overstanding of where everything came together and how we might have missed it in the previous era, but we have it now. We have the information now. Just a moment.
There are 50 participants.
Okay. So okay. This video gave me it connected the rest of the dots that we were looking for. But the first of those dots is always nationality, status on the land. Who are you on the land? Who are you on the land? That's the most important connection we could ever make. Who are you on the land? Because who you are on the land determines your connection to the resources. Your connection to the resources. So nationality is not a suggestion, although we suggested it is not just a suggestion. It is the law. Nationality is the law for the land. Additionally, our money and our own banking is the law for the land. It's not a suggestion. We have to do it. It is a must that we have our own, that we be the creators of our own wealth. Truth. We must. There's no other way to maintain and to govern our wealth other than creating it. Okay? Which we've done. So again, and we'll just go over this briefly, choose something from your inventory to trade, whether that be talent, skills, abilities, knowledge, information, goods, nutrition, items, and other, and assign a value to your presentment. So whatever it is, assign a value to it. Assigning a value to your presentment is another way to say a business plan. Okay? Publish or find someone who has inventory to trade, so others who've done the same thing. Agree in writing or verbally to trade, and we prefer, in writing, of course. However, we have done trades verbally. Then manifest the trade. Go ahead and perform the trade or do the trade. Reconcile any differences in more sovereign dolarium gold receipts. So if there's any reconciliation that needs to be done, let's say one of the exchanges is not valued as highly or lower as the other, then whatever the difference is, make that up in more sovereign dolarium gold receipts or gold and silver, or give them a credit on the books. And then record the trade on your books. Each party should record the trade on their books to receive the credit for the action. So this is our banking system very simply. That's why it's always been stated that we're the bank. We've always been the bank. We always will be. Always been the bank. Everyone knew that. And everyone also knew that we had the authority to do what we're doing. It was just a matter of when we decided to do it. After we watched enough of this, of the concepts going back and forth, then we shut that down and we do our part. We do what we do. We manifest our own economic power and authority. That's what this was all about anyway from the very beginning. We will be voting on, and this is just a note, a side note for now, we will be voting on creating more sovereign dolarium silver receipts because we do have to have silver receipts. And then we may even do a third iteration of commodity receipts. Or we could do silver and commodity receipts. We could combine that into one. Gold had to be separate because gold is God's money or our money. Okay. So it's simply a matter of what we decide as a Congress on how to move forward. It is important that we do these things, that we create these particular instruments, silver and commodities instruments. Because we have to include everyone. Okay. And commodities instruments will cover things like cannabis, sea salt, and so on and so forth, but the gold ones will as well. So more sovereign dolarium silver receipts will be for the citizens, the subjects, and for them to do whatever they do back and forth. Okay, because we must govern that as well, because there are still some of the bloodline and birthright who think that they are that they were born in a U.S. or a USA when they were not. They are actually the heirs, and their person was created outside of the United States and then goes into the United States to do business. So the dolarium, the silver dolarium, and these silver and commodities dolariums will have animals on them, as you know. The gold ones have the ancient people on them, and then the silver and commodities receipts will have either animals, or they will have photos of commodities on them. It may have, some silver bars or some mountains or something like that, but it will be up to this Congress just to put it on the record about the silver and commodities receipts. Because, again, those are already in our inventory. And these silver and commodities receipts are also have to do with things like lumber and limestone and, things that are, and fish and things of that nature as well. We can use gold or silver receipts to do whatever we will to do. When Moors are doing things between one another, the gold receipts are appropriate. And so it's important that we know how to use our money. And again, all of the money is ours. It's just a matter of, okay, we determine, just like we would have determined whether to use the difference between using gold coins and using paper money, or using paper money and using contracts and liens, so, or a merchant card, so we willed to present as many ways to invest or vest funds or convey and move funds around, and commodities and gold and silver. We willed to present as many ways as possible so that it is as convenient as possible for all of us. So this is something that this Congress will be voting on and discussing in the future. We will to present, or at least put it put it on the table so that you can, have it to think about and chew on it, and anything that the Spirit gives you to bring up about that is fine as well, so that we can discuss it in the future. Are there any questions, comments, wisdom regarding anything that we stated thus far? Islam. And I will say this too. It might seem like it's on a different topic, but it's really not. It's still the same topic. There are some Moors who are being tested right now. Okay? Some are doing prisoner of war camp tests. Some are doing other types of tests. We've heard this many times, that when they come out of their testing, they are always grateful and glad that we kept going with what we're doing. The reason we're bringing that up is because by the time they come out, these other changes will be on the record. So we will to know and for them to know that everything that we're doing is also for them, and that we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going because they're depending on us too. So for some, it may seem like we don't care because we keep going, but we're actually doing that with them in mind. So I don't know who in the energies might have put that energy out there as to, why we don't just focus everything on those who are being tested. That's why, because there are some things that we're bringing forth that they're going to be very grateful that these things are being put on the record and that we did not stop. We've heard it many times from many Moors who were tested say, I'm so glad y'all didn't stop doing what you were doing. I'm glad you kept going, because they see the progress that's being made. So I don't know what brought that on, but it must have been a conversation maybe that happened and we heard it in the spirit realm or something of that nature. We're doing it because we love them and because we know that they're coming out of that test. They're coming out of their test. And when they do, there'll be even more gifts and giftings for them. So with that being stated.
Islam,
Empress.
Islam.
Empress.
I want to thank you for bringing that up, because Empress Shasha is on my mind a lot. I pray for her every day, and I know we have to go through these tests. Yeah. But I just want her to know, if she can hear my voice, that I think of her and I love her. I've never seen her face, but I feel her spirit, and I pray that that she's safe. And we do. I know we must continue this. This is what frees us all. We can't stop. So I do believe we are doing the right thing, for not only for us, the Moors, but for the entire world. We got to keep this going. There's no one else but us.
Yes.
I yield. Thank you.
Yes. Empress, I'm just so grateful that you can see that, because there are some who cannot see that. They only see their feelings, as if we don't feel the same. We feel the same way. We think about all of the Moors who are being tested because we've been there. And we know that people thought about us. We felt it in our spirit. We knew that others were thinking about us while we were being tested. And while we were being tested, all we were thinking was, we're going to keep going. Y'all keep going too. So, when people bring a lot of emotion into what we're doing, it's not that we don't have the emotion, it's that we are in complete control of our emotion. And that's where leadership of processes comes in at, because no one leads the sovereigns, we all lead ourselves. But those who are leading processes, we will to know that no matter what happens, those processes will continue, that we will continue, that nothing stops us, and we keep going because we've made so much progress. We are the gods at earth. We're the wealthiest ever. We must keep going. Unstoppable means just that, unstoppable. Unable to be stopped. Not that a whole bunch is happening to just keep bombarding, but because it's not. Because of the work that we've done, a lot of that wisdom has no adversary. Wisdom has no adversary because we keep doing the work. And that's for them as well, for the Moors that are going through it. Just imagine what they would be feeling if they came out of their test and no one was doing any work and everybody had quit and gone on back to quote unquote statelessness rather. What would they be thinking about the test that they just went through? It would be all for nothing in some of their minds. And we just won't have that. That's a no-go. We're not having that. They're going to know that they tested and that they came through for the benefits and the blessings and the wealth and all that they see for themselves, the abundance and everything. That's what they're going to see. That's what they're going to know. Islam nobility.
I have to comment on what you just stated because it is absolutely true. While I was going through my testing, I had no clue what was going on outside. I had no clue what anyone was doing. I did not know who was standing their ground, who was being faithful, who was treading the path, who was leading the charge. I didn't know anything, and I could not find out, and it was driving me nuts. All right, not literally, but figuratively, it was wrestling with my spirit. I'll put it that way. So upon getting out, and then discovering that there were some who really were continuing the fight and had been making much progress.
Yeah.
All right. On the West Coast here, but not just on the West Coast, but all over. Yeah. All right. And even though some had fallen away, a good many that I was looking to see if they were still continuing were continuing.
Yeah.
And I was so pleased with that. And it gave me more courage to continue my own fight and join them where I left off and to pick up and just start running with them wherever we're going. So, yes, it does make a difference that we continue to do what we're doing without regard to who stumbled a little here, who got tested here. That's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. The prophet basically told us, you have everything you need to save the entire nation and the whole world. Now take it and go save yourself first. He didn't say go try to save everybody else. Because when you save yourself first, now you are standing as a solid, what do you want to call it, lighthouse in a tumultuous sea of confusion, and you stand solid, and people need that. So they can start standing solid with you like a lighthouse in a stormy sea. That's what we all have to strive for. That's why he said, save yourself first.
Yes.
It's not to be selfish. That's so that you can stand your ground and be a pillar for those who are trying to come in, those who wish to come back in. Islam, I yield with that.
Yes, indeed, nobility. And here's the thing, and Noble Phoenix, you should know this too. We were thinking about you and everyone who's being tested. We're always thinking about you. Always thinking about you. If I've ever spoken to any of you on the phone or in these meetings, I'm always thinking about you, always. That never stops. It never stops. Even in my sleep, it doesn't stop. We just know that, okay, we're going to keep moving forward because there's some things, some blessings and some things that we've overcome and jumped over and gotten to some blessings and things and the estate has accessed and all of that. That's going to assist you as you come out. And here's the thing. I know in my spirit and in my knower that the majority of the Moors who are, think about the Moors who've been in POW camps for 20 and 30 years. What will they be coming out of those camps and seeing and receiving for their sacrifice? What do they deserve? They deserve the best of everything. They deserve all that their soul can handle. And for some of them, it's just a steady domicile, a steady place where they know they're going to be there and they're going to have some stability. For some of them, it's stability, and for others, it's castles the size of the White House or bigger, Buckingham Palace style things. So they deserve us that we continue moving forward on all that we're working on.
Aisha, did you tell them how you lost in court yesterday and you're being evicted on the side?
So, it's important that we continue and keep moving, keep doing what we do, so that they know that their testing is not in vain, because it's not. Islam, Empress.
I spoke with Empress Nana, and that's Empress Sasha's sister.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that her next court date is tomorrow. So if everyone can just, keep the good energy going and just have good feelers out for tomorrow.
Okay. Let's take a moment. Let's take a moment here and send Empress Shasha some energy and all the Moors, specifically for us, any Moors that are being tested. And we will to state Empress Shasha's appellation on the public record for this particular moment, that she knows that we are with her as she's going through.
The real judge is going to decide to let her out or not. The real.
So that she knows that we're with her. So let's just take a moment. And let's just state.
Poor little Aisha is fucked.
Let's just state Islam 3 times in favor of Empress Shasha. That means we're ruling on what's on the matter. 1, 2, 3.
Aisha said
Islam.
Yes, Empress Shasha. And all the Moors. Islam, Islam, Islam. Yes, in your favor. So we're always, everything that we do is for them. Everything that we do. Yes, it's for us too, but it's for them. So, and I'm actually looking forward to hearing the testaments as they come out of their testing, just to hear the testaments and how they stood on their square along with us witnessing them standing. Because we know they do. They will stand and they do stand. And they will continue to stand. Islam. So we went over this the other day regarding the opportunities. All of our industries and sectors are overflowing with holdings. We know that. And this says, but no takers, but we know that we're here. Just one moment. And I think we did this the last time too. We have the resources and the money to vest. And now we're bringing those together. We don't even have to ask how they come together anymore, because the moment we asked the question, the ancestors began to download the answers to us. How do we bring our holdings and our resources and our money together? So let me just point out before we go any further, this word is dilapidation. I saw something on social media in the enactment that caught our attention briefly. Just a moment. Let's put this on the screen. So there was someone who said, they said, we closed on the sale of our house last week and have been waiting for the direct deposit to be available. It shows that the check has cleared, but it's not available to us. When we asked the bank about it today, their response was, we need to know why you need the money so quickly. I am so appalled at the audacity of these banks. So again, we know those are not real banks, and that's why this issue is happening. That is why our own financial system was so important. That's another reason why, is because with the system that we have set up, that would never happen. That would never happen with our system. Why? Because we're the bank. If I send any more some funds, some dollarium, some gold and silver, they're going to receive it. We know that. They're going to receive it. And there will be no thing and no one that can say, oh, well, we have it, but we can't give it to you right now.
We saw all those rejected checks in your...
So our money goes back and forth unencumbered, completely unencumbered. So how did the debt happen in the previous era? How did we miss the wealth, and how do we gain wealth for our estates now? And this is all in alignment with what we just talked about capitalism and how everything happened in the previous era, how we missed it, and all of that. And as we stated before, there were we know now how to vote ourselves the treasury to get whatever it is that is necessary for us, because we hold the purse strings. We all do. Now, Moors, this is the part that just really, my eyes were open even further today as I did some study and watched some videos and listened to some subjects talking about how they were able to vote themselves the treasury, and we were not able to do that because there was a part that we didn't know. Every penny, don't let them tell you any different. Every penny that the subjects that were previously doing business as Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and Elon Musk and all of them, every penny that they got, especially when you're talking about anything over $100 million or even close to $100 million, they got it from the Internal Revenue Service, quote unquote.
Bullshit.
That's where it came from. We know now. That's where it came from. But see, hear me when I say this, Moors. First and foremost, the little people, they used the Internal Revenue Service to bully the little people and to scare them, and then to placate others by just give them $3,000 or $4,000 a year, and they'll shut up and sit down and they won't do too much because they'll just spend that. Okay, So it was that mechanism that was used to keep everybody in place, to keep the 100 million plus in place, to keep the poor, because see, if you were on something called that they were calling welfare, which is just a big lie. If you were on something called welfare and you got food stamps and things like that, they didn't have to worry about you. They didn't have to worry about you, because the moment you started being a little, showing some innovation, and I'm specifically using the word innovation, the minute you started hustling out there and doing some things, and then you bought a few things, they would put you in check. They would put you in check, right? If you were supposedly, quote unquote, middle class, they kept you in check. They would send a tax bill every now and then, and if you got a little too highfalutin and you got a little too much going on, they would just lower the dynamite on you. And then them super, like the what they call the ultra high net worth people. There's a reason they call that thing a net. Ultra high net worth. There's a reason for that. The ultra high net worth, quote unquote, person, they used the Internal Revenue Service to keep that stuff coming in year after year after year after year. And each year, growth was built in. Growth was built in. We're gonna show you how all of that worked. And Morris, our teachers have told us about the Inquisition Revenue Service, and they were absolutely correct. We agree 100%. We affirm that, what they stated about that thing being a monster and not good for us. That's why we are our own Internal Revenue System. No. Be quiet. I'm getting this out. We are our own Internal Revenue System. We have our own system that we use, and we notify that system, and the system is going to do what systems do. It's going to make us wealthier and wealthier and wealthier, if that's even possible, which it is. We're just going to grow our estates. So I see in the chat, Empress Gloria says, yes, they would. They did it to her in the previous era. Empress Gloria, if you would unmute briefly and just, if you would give us just an overview of how that happened,
Oh, yes, Empress. I'm Gloria Voloskovsky Bay, and I had an apartment locator service in Austin, Texas. Those people, and we know who those are, they did so many things against me. They had agents come out, because I had my own service, see, as they say. And they had people come to work for me. And, for example, I had a little old bitty Toyota. No, it was another brand. It was new. Mm-hmm. But this woman comes to me to work for me. She's got a Porsche. Really? So these are 5. Then another one came to work with me. And her husband was a policeman. I'm like, somebody right here. Sure enough. Oh, and another one came to be friendly, false friend. I know now that her husband worked for CERN. CERN, you hear me? CERN.
Yes, different.
You see? And eventually, it caused bad energy or something, because I had to close it down.
Yeah.
Get away from all this bad energy. But yeah, they will do that to you.
Yes. So I will say this about that. I did not put that link in the chat. Just a moment. Let me put the imposter out really quickly.
Just another jealous.
Really quickly. Yeah. Thank you for speaking so I can put you out quicker. So let me say this about that, Empress and more. The reason, and see, I can see the reason on, because, you know, there's duality in everything, okay? There's a good and a bad in everything. Empress Gloria, you were doing all the right things with your business. I had several businesses also. And the thing about the businesses is that once you get a certain amount of revenue coming in, if you don't know how to grow that revenue, they will shut you down. And Empress Gloria, I already know that you knew a lot, but there were some things that you didn't know that caused them to act the way they acted. For example, and I'll just ask you, Empress Gloria, because I don't think it's too personal. But if it is, you can just say you don't want to talk about that on. But I'll just ask you: did you know how to deduct the price of your vehicle tax-wise? Did you know how to do that, or did you just buy it and get a loan for it and make payments on it?
I did make payments on it, but you said the deduction for the taxes. I had someone to help me, and she did that because she used to work for IRS. So she showed me, and she did a good job because I deducted a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. And did you know to carry that over to the next year as a credit to you?
That I did not know at all.
That's why they had to come in and shut you down. They did that because you didn't know, and again, we weren't taught, so we weren't supposed to know, because believe it or not, all of us heirs on this at this Congress, and those who hear this, we were not supposed to be millionaires and trillionaires in that previous era, because we didn't create that quote unquote system. It wasn't really a system. It was a pretend one, because that wasn't real money. Fiat is not real money, or U.S.debt fiat. So the internal revenue system is designed. You will automatically grow and be a trillionaire if you choose to be, when you know that system.
Exactly. And then I was buying a house. Now, I did not know at that time, I didn't know that when I signed or autograph on that line, it was paid for. But let me tell you what they did. Okay, so I got the adjustable rate. It's like 3% or something like that, right? Ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
They raised that within 5 years to 17%. And I let it go. I said, y'all can have it back. So they ruined me. But
you know what? They did, but not really, because you know. Now you're good. You're here. You're good. Can I tell you all that when you sign on the line that is already paid for, there is a process that you must do so that you know that it's paid for. And we know what the process is. We're going to tell you. And also, we encourage you to watch the video that we posted in the chat earlier, because it became really clear to me in that video. In this video, this is the same link that we posted earlier here. I'll put this one in the chat. I didn't put the one before this one in the chat. I'm putting this one in the chat. I just put it in there twice. It's on the screen. When you see this video, and see now, when I saw this video, it all became clear to me why this information was not supposed to get out. And the one that's in the video telling the stuff knew it wasn't supposed to get out either, but it's not working for him anymore because he's in the wrong system. Okay. But listen, what we were supposed to do, and Empress, I'm saying we because I didn't know either until now. What we were supposed to do was anything that we buy, anything, Morris, I don't care if it's a loaf of bread, anything that we buy was either supposed to be deductible because we put it in the right place, or it was supposed to be capitalized and then deductible because we put it in the right place, or it was supposed to be expensed because we put it in the right place. So that the next year it can be a credit to us. It comes out a credit. Your domicile is paid for when you know this. And again, we've been using our domiciles to work, period. So our domicile, either the payments on it or the whole thing at once. Or if we had been renting, the rent each month could have been deducted all the way through, so that the next year, every bit that we deduct is posted as a credit for the next year. And it's a credit until we decide to use it.
Empress, like,
We'll have cameras rolling. Aisha's eviction. We'll have the.
They trying to stop the energy. Be quiet. Go ahead, Empress.
Yeah, in 1975, 75, 76. Now, I was working at Neiman Marcus, downtown Dallas. And like you say, we're not used to money and that kind of stuff. But those people were talking about, oh, you buy this car and you don't pay interest, blah, blah, blah. And the next year, they were saying, oh, yeah, well, you're going to have to pay interest. Whatever it was, you didn't have to pay. And all of a sudden, you got to pay now, like interest or taxes, like you're talking about. And you couldn't deduct it. But before that, you could deduct it.
See, because the money was changing in the 70s. That was right after Bretton Woods in 71.
1971. And let me tell you something else, like, since we're talking about money. Okay, so I was on a little scholarship and I was a student in Graz, Austria, 1973.
Ooh, Austria, Empress? Austria?
Yeah, Graz, Austria, at the university. And so they started messing with the money. Yeah. And I think it was, what's his name? From California was the president, not the lady. No, Nixon.
Oh, okay.
And I was in Russia at the time. He had just left the week before, okay?
Yeah.
And Hotel Rosia. He, at that time, now the history is showing that he's the one who enacted this problem with this money. Because at that time, I exchanged with the money. You know, we got a lot once we put in those little dollar bills or whatever. And then all of a sudden, it crashed. And so those Austrians were laughing at us and saying, how does it feel? This is a quote. How does it feel to be poor?
And yes, because it was all, they knew then it was all fiat after that. There was no commodities attached to the money. And that's why we said what we said about the silver and commodities dollarium and the gold dollarium. They're directly connected to commodities. Directly connected. That's what gives it so much value. Our money so much value. But Empress, so Morris, listen, whenever we buy conveyances, for example, there's a section 179 and we'll show you this in just a moment, in the Internal Revenue System, because it's a system. Morris, when we speak to the system, we're going to get the wealth. It has no choice but to grow, because the way the system is designed is you grow every year. Every year you grow by leaps and bounds. Every year. You have no choice but to grow by leaps and bounds. So what we're doing is bringing all of those leaps and bounds together. So let me tell you how Islam nobility.
Before you go on, I wanted to just touch on the point that you and the Empress had just made about our states and money and so forth. One of the things that I had been working very long and hard to figure out was how to live in accordance with the Biblio-Helios, 1 Thessalonians 4:11, which if you look at that in the Bible Hub, which compares 20-something translations, you get a fuller appreciation of what it was trying to tell you. To make it your aim to mind your own business.
Yes.
And your business is your estate. Yes. That's what it is. You were supposed to be running your life through your estate as a business, which is why all of the things you mentioned about, your rent, your mortgage, all of those were taxable expenses of your living to take care of the living man. That's what it is. But you do it through your corporate entity. But we were never told any of that. We were not taught that. We were not even taught the basic ABCs, which is not the alphabet. I'm going to just leave it there. It ain't the alphabet they were talking about that you need to learn with the ABCs. But
they were talking about the letters, the capitalized letters. That's what they were talking about.
Even more than that.
Yeah.
Even more. In the old era, that was talking about your tax forms 1099A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Which is what allowed you to write these expenses off and pull down the credit.
Yeah.
Okay? For your estate. So we never were taught all that. So we were blundering and flamming around like we didn't know how to swim in water because we just weren't told that. We didn't have the muscle memory right then. And it took till now for us to awaken and all of that to come back to our memory so that we can start administrating our estates as a business. And now that we have our own money, we have our nation, we have come together in trust. Oh, my Lord, have mercy. Would you look at all this stuff that we have? I have said many times, and you can ask everybody that's in, our Saturday call, listen, we got so many tools in our toolbox, we just got to start learning how to use them. That's it. Yeah. We got everything we need to manage our affairs.
Yes.
I'm just so grateful that we have come together the way we have, Islam.
Listen, we were in the previous era, just by what you stated there, nobility, we were trying to use our own names, but we did not own our own names in the previous era. Those were not our creation. And they were not going to have them using our names, quote unquote, to enrich themselves and then have us come and do the same thing. Because we would have been taken out of their kids' mouths by using our own, what we thought was our own names. See, when you know what capital is, you'll know why the name was so important. So does anyone know what capital is? The definition of capital? Anybody? Just look in and we'll pull it up in the dictionary as well.
Islam,
Empress.
The resources of the earth.
In a roundabout, indirectly.
Okay.
Indirectly. We are actually the source of those resources. However, and see, no dictionary that I've seen actually gives the real definition of capital. Some do, some get close. Some give the definition, but there needs to be an explanation for that. It needed to be explained. Now, this is going to be why signatures were so important. Signatures, the names, So let's take a look here at capital. Look at all the different iterations of the word capital. Look at all of this. Capitalis reditus means a chief rent. Capitalis pledges, a chief pledge. Okay, so let's look at the word capital. Now, as an adjective here, it says affecting or relating to the head or life of a person. Entailing the ultimate penalty. The head and not the tail. Okay, think that when you see entailing the ultimate penalty. See, capital punishment is a penalty if you are the tail and not the head. But then here it says principal, leading, chief. So when you know how to use capital, then there is no penalty and you will always prosper. Always prosper. But let's look at capital as a noun. And of course, they start hemming and hawing about it. Now, since when does Black's Law Dictionary not give you a good definition of the word? It's saying here the word may have different meanings when used in different connections, and they're not going to give you much more than that. So they're listing a few things here. So we'll tell you what capital is. And you'll know why names are so important when you see the definition. Capital is anything that confers value or benefit to its owner, such as factory and its machinery, intellectual property like patents, or the financial assets of a business or an individual. And this is where that whole slavery piece came in. Your name in all capital letters was a benefit to the owner of that name. And that's why they kept trying to call you into fake courts and start slapping debt on you. Because you answered to their capital, not your own. Just think about that for a moment. Let that marinate and settle on in and saturate your mind. Because it's important that the precept of this be taken in and understood.
Islam,
Empress.
Now that we can lean those names that they created,
yes,
and triple the value back to ourselves,
yes, through your own name that you own.
okay,
That's the same, spelled the same, and everything. It looks exact. They look like evil twins.
Okay.
And the benefit comes back. We're gonna keep putting that part forth and exactly how to do it. And guess what? It's through the internal revenue system that all of that money comes back to you. All those credits come back.
And they really don't want you to know that, because I have used those coupons with the bond on the top of your bill,
yes,
as a coupon, and they will give you credit for what you send them, but they never add the double to it.
You know why, Empress?
Because they don't want you to get out of debt.
Well, they can't, because even though you did the right process, see, they let you know the process is right, but the system was wrong.
Okay.
Because it's a debt system. Theirs was a debt system.
Oh.
Because we have a creditor system, you can do that same process restated and get exactly what you know is yours. But we use our person. My Pauline is the real Pauline, not theirs. And then we notify the system, and when we notify the system is going to do what systems do. It's going to credit your account.
So those homes that we have purchased in the past, when we restate that, we can restate it the same way.
Of course.
Like if it costs $50, then when it comes back around, you getting $150.
Yes, it's a deduction, but it's because, listen, all the time is being made up because we get to make the rules here.
Okay.
He who holds the gold makes the rules, and the high.
Right now.
And I am prophesying right now that everybody who's hearing this will hear that statement specifically at least 3 times this week in whatever you're doing, that he who holds the gold makes the rules. So just look out for it. Yes, Islam Empress.
Yeah, that's the same statement they teach you when you're studying real estate.
Oh, yeah.
The same statement you just said.
Yes. And they knew they weren't dealing in gold, so. But it's all good. We got it. Our ancestors are faithful to us. They're faithful to us and through us, by us and for us. The information was not hidden from us. It was hidden for us. So when you look at this meaning of this word capital here, think about the names, particularly when it says anything that confers value or benefit to its owner. Anything means whatever you can name. Whatever you can name. And that is how Adam got dominion over the whole earth. And let's not forget, Eve got dominion over the whole earth too, because she was there too. Because he was naming things. He was naming things. And now we've named everything. Everything. You name it, you claim it. So can someone name things that confer value or benefit? And now listen, this definition right here does not say anything that's already paid for, or it doesn't say anything that that you have that fits a certain criteria. It doesn't say that. It says anything that confers value or benefit to its owner. And guess what? There is nothing that we have or will have or that we properly claim that does not have value and benefit. Everything has value and benefit to us when we properly use our system to manifest it. So, for example, there are those who were talking about conveyances. I see now why the ancestors said, let's not let the conveyance manifest until she knows how to claim it and have it be paid for already. It's a process. It's real easy. It's called a deduction. See, here's the thing. Let's say, and this is why those who were in the automotive industry, the new models of conveyances came out when? When did the dealerships get the new models of conveyances? Does anyone know?
Of the year?
Yes, for the next year. You know why? Does anyone know why in September, October, November, December timeframe the new models start coming out? Does anyone know why the model for the next year came out a few months early?
So they could buy the new model early. and get the deduction in the following year.
There you go.
Ding, 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 ding. And the winner is Empress Aisha. That's correct. Even our domiciles are deductible, the whole amount immediately. Whichever year we buy it in, it's deductible, the whole amount. And you can claim that deduction in that year or the following year, because we get to make the rules. So where conveyances are concerned, if you get the conveyance on December 31st, if you purchase the conveyance on December 31st, you will have claimed the deduction and gotten that back before you can even make 2 or 3 payments. You will have gotten that thing paid for, because the deduction that you take, the bank will give you something on that deduction. The bank will give you something on that deduction. That's why banks were asking for tax forms, so they can see where they can. And this is the good banks. This is our banks. Our banks ask for tax forms so they can see if there's any place that there's a deduction. We can go ahead and front that to you because you got the deduction already. That means that the conveyance is already paid for. And do you all remember the time when they would say, okay, you have a conveyance, but you don't have to make a payment for 90 days?
Right.
That's why. People were getting conveyances, claiming that deduction, and when tax time came, they was able to pay the whole thing off. Did you also know, let's say, for example, if your company, your name, Pauline Denise Ritchie, if that's your, since that's your, the estate, or whatever your, but of course it's your sovereign born appellation in all caps because that's your estate. Or it can be a company that you start, which can be any company. If your company took in $5,000, okay, but then you said, okay, I will to have a conveyance. You can wait until December 31st, get a 90-day delay on making the first payment, file the taxes electronically, and get that whole amount for that conveyance up front. That's why even some places where you file taxes were saying, we can give you a tax advance. But see, we were thinking twos and fews, $2,000 or $3,000. We were thinking that. People were paying off whole domiciles and whole conveyances and fleets of conveyances, whatever they could. And then talking bad about you because all you accepted was $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000. And you spent that on a down payment on something you could have got the whole thing paid off on through your estate. And the banks and the IRS work together to enrich the people. How about that? The banks and the IRS work together to enrich, and that's why we couldn't use that previous thing calling itself an IRS. We couldn't use that. It's called the Internal Revenue System. That's the new one. That's ours. That's why it's IRS. But it's a system. It's not a service. So anywhere, Morris, anywhere that you see the word service, replace that word with system. Even if it's military service, no, it was a system. It's a system now. Then it was a service. And that's why they were saying, they had our prophet to say, a servant is worthy of his hire. That was a hint that the service is going to get paid before you do. But the system will pay you because it's a system. Systems don't need money. Systems need to get rid of the numbers, not keep them. Systems prove their worth by what they give you, not what they take. That's why even the ecosystem, they say ecosystem, it's the ecosystem, not ecosystem, but it is kind of an ecosystem. That's why even that system requires that the carbon beings contribute carbon into the air so that the system grows. And then the plants and the animals take in that, and then out comes the other nutrients and things, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxides, oxygen, so on and so forth, carbon. The system is meant to grow the estate. But see, in the previous era, the owners of those names, quote unquote, were not going to have us using our own names, or matter of fact, let me restate that. They were not going to have us use their names to enrich us when we can create our own name and enrich ourselves. And guess what? There won't be two, because that's antithetical to unum sanctum. Unum sanctum says there's only one head. And even the dead fake unum sanctum said there's only one head. And even the dead one said that one head was a matriarch. So the Pope put on a dress, quote unquote, and he wasn't a real Pope, he just a fake mother, put on a dress and said, okay, I'll pretend to be the matriarch. That's what unum sanctum says. One head. So that's why we restated it to say the proper, what it should say, what it should state. And when it says one head, it's still talking about capitalism. Still talking about capitalism. But see, the head needs to know that she's the head. And when I say she, we're talking about energy. Our sons have she energy also. That's why he is contained in the word she. Capital is a broad term that can describe anything, and this is something that I copied and pasted. It is a word, and I'm going to say a specific word that states, and when I say a specific word, that means any specific word. Capital is any specific word that is of the right species that states anything that confers value or benefit to her owners. Because in French, words have a gender. Words are gender specific. They have male words and female, not male, masculine and feminine words. Capital is a specific word that states anything that confers value or benefit to her owners, such as a factory, the factory's machinery, intellectual property like patents or financial assets of a business or individual. It says, while money itself may be construed as capital, and for us it is, because money is commodities based. While money is capital. Capital is more often associated with cash that is being put to work for productive or investment purposes. And this is what we're saying about the names. The only way that those previous fakes could get any benefit from the heirs who were asleep was to use the name to do things. So first came the birth certificates and all of that. Then they made sure that we went to school because that was something they was claiming and using and preparing us to then go to college, then go to work. So they were using the name all along as a benefit to themselves. Because guess what? It was their schools, it was their daycare centers, it was their colleges, it was their workplaces, their corporations. Then it was their jails, because after that comes jail. When they couldn't get you to do as much work because you were waking up, then it's like, okay, well, let's put them there and see how they do. We don't stay there long. We always came out after a short while. You know, some may think it was a long time, but all we have to do is be who we're supposed to be, ourselves. Islam, Empress.
Then, you know, in a lot of the states, they still use jail. If people owe debts, they put them in jail for it.
Because it's the name. The name is listed as a debtor, and they keep claiming that name. But see, here's the thing. The subjects cannot pull themselves out of that system. They have to come out when we come out, and then we claim them as our subjects. That's how they get out, because they're not attached to the land unless we say you work for us.
Oh, okay. So oh my God.
They could not take themselves out. And go ahead.
They'll be swamped after a while.
Of course, Empress, because here's the thing. When we thought that we were U.S. citizens, we couldn't take ourselves out either.
Right.
Until we declared who we really are.
Okay, so I think a light just came on.
I know it did, Empress.
If I lien someone and I lien them for $100 million plus $200 million, that's $300 million, isn't it?
It is.
Restated. So we'll never be broke if we know how to use the system.
Never. And then you notify the system, the internal revenue system. You notify that system and tell them where to put it.
Okay.
You see,
so that's the reason they kind of led us out of the trust and really had most of our people creating wills instead of trust, because the trust was our estate that would have really increased our wealth like as much as we wanted it increased.
Yes, and see, a will is for the dead or people who expect to die.
Right.
That's why we didn't, in that system, not now, because we
right.
have living wills, they're eternal. But in that previous system, in that previous era, even on the job, they had you doing, insurance forms and stuff, life insurance and stuff, knowing that you were claiming to be dead. How are you going to do a life insurance form when you're dead?
Yeah, and then when you left the job, they increased mine so much they knew I wasn't going to retain it because I wasn't going to pay $1,000 a month for no insurance.
And Empress Light, I'm gonna add to this insurance piece and these jobs that we used to go to.
Mm-hmm.
I heard on one of them, and the attorney says, and it's a mega company, they have insurance on you, and the rest of the employees, major company, right?
Mm.
Since then they sent all their equipment and stuff to China, but they made us sick first. And wow. That's how I found out that they had insurance. So they were hoping that I and the others would die.
Of course.
But I didn't die, so hey, I'm here.
Well, Empress, wait a minute. Let me add a little clarity there. They weren't hoping that you would die. They already considered you dead.
Yes. And I didn't know that.
So they can take those insurance policies and they were borrowing on them. Because in their system, you were already supposedly dead in the enactment. So that's why those insurance policies were so People who sold, like Warren Buffett, let's make it clear that the subject, people who sold insurance to corporations made a killing. They made so much, it was just unbelievable. Because corporations could do the same thing people with quote unquote whole life insurance would do. They would borrow all the value of the whole life insurance policy. If your company offered insurance, they were borrowing on you, on quote unquote your name. Let me put it that way, your name, because your name was considered that of a dead person.
Islam. And they would even take it one step further. The actual insurance policy was and the proceeds from it were coming from your estate.
Yes.
Charged it to your estate.
Yes. But it was their person, so it really kind of wasn't yours. It was theirs. They did all that stuff. They crafted all of that.
Right. But again, what I'm saying by that, not that it's not our person. Yeah. I get that. Yeah. But what I'm getting at is the fact that they were charging it as if it was to you.
Yes.
All right? So we know that there's a separation, but they would charge it to you. Okay.
Because we
not you, but to their vessel. Correction.
Yeah. And whenever we claimed their vessel to get the paycheck, they attached the death benefit. Yes. So along with the wages of sin came death. Does everyone see where that connection came in at? Does everyone see that? The wages of sin is death. But the gift of God is eternal life. The gift of God for us is to know that we are God. And then to create our own everything. Indeed. Business capital may derive from operations of the business or be raised from debt or equity financing. Common sources of capital include personal savings, family and friends, angel investors, venture capitalists, and here's the thing. We're going to clean this up because this is a little bit corrupt, and this information is a little bit, and when I say a little bit corrupt, I copied and pasted this from a particular Investopedia article about capitalism, but it is according to our intentions. That cleans up everything. It's according to our intentions. Angel investors, venture capitalists, corporations, federal, state, and local governments, private loans, worker business operations, going public with an initial public offering. So when budgeting, businesses of all kinds typically focus on three types of capital, but there is a fourth type: working capital, equity capital, debt capital. Which we don't use debt capital. What we do is we change the name of it so that it's credit to us. A business in the financial industry identifies trading capital as a fourth component. And then here are the four major types. Again, working capital, debt, equity, and trading capital. Trading capital is used by brokerages and other financial institutions. Any debt capital is offset by a debt liability on the balance sheet. And here's the thing. This is the part that's most important. The capital structure of a company determines what mix of these types of capital it uses to fund its business. And then economists look at the capital of a family, a business, or an entire economy to evaluate how efficiently it is using its resources. This is why we did what we did at the beginning of this Congress, which is to forgive yourself if you were financially irresponsible in the previous era. Just go ahead and let that energy go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. It's not coming into this era with us. It can't come into this era with us. You must let it go because it will limit how much you feel your work and your energy and the things that you do is worth. It will limit it for you, not us. We already know you're extremely valuable. And your energy and your work and your thoughts and all. When they talk about how they look at how a family uses its capital, when the more of us that come together, the more capital we create. Now, again, all of this was done through the internal revenue service in the previous era. And again, there was an attempt to make that thing feel like it was our worst enemy, when in reality, we govern the internal revenue system. That's why we have our own money, because now that we have our own money, we use our system to make our wealth grow. Let me tell you what, and this is the part that came really clear to us today as we were watching the video that's linked in the chat. Let's say, for example, and we talked about this briefly a little while ago, but let's put some bigger numbers on it. Let's say that you have $100 million in your trust, and you transfer that $100 million from your trust, from your estate trust to your company trust. Well, that's $100 million that you have to use. So then the first thing you do is you go out and spend $50 million of that $100 million on a piece of property to house your business. Well, that $50 million is a deduction, 100% deduction, so that when you go into the next year, you've got $50 million and the property. So you've already, like Empress Aisha was saying, you've already doubled the $50 million. You doubled it just by that. You've tripled it, actually. Because the $50 million, you had $100 million in your trust to begin with. So you already had the $50 million. Then you bought a piece of property worth $50 million. So now that's $250 million. Then when you do the deduction, that's a third $50 million. So you deducted that. That means that's $50 million you're not taxed on, because we're not taxed, remember? But that not tax status is not automatic. We have to properly claim it using our system. So now you've got $150 million on your books just from one wise investment. One wise investment. Then you say, okay, I'm going to get some conveyances for this business, because we will to have those. We have to have those. But what you do is you wait until the December 31st, and then the car dealership mowers are saying to everyone, if you buy your conveyance between December 1st and December 31st, you will not have to make a payment for 3 months. That gives you time to go ahead and notify your internal revenue system, because see, you're not talking to foreigners and you're not talking to corpses, you're not talking to strangers, you're speaking to your system. And you say to your system, this is a deduction. So you've notified the system that $50 million or whatever you spend on your conveyance, that $500,000 that you spent on your conveyance, that's not taxable either. See, the thing is, Morris, the more we circulate our money, the more everything and everyone is going to grow. Our estate is going to grow. And then you take that other 50 million or 40 million, because you want to keep 10 million, let's say, in savings or whatever, and have that savings grow. If you take 40 million and that 40 million, because you got 50 million left now in cash, you take 40 million of that and you purchase a Cessna airplane. Let's just say, for example. Well, now you're about to triple the 40 million, because you got the 40 million that you had in savings. You put it, when you take it out of your savings, then the books are going to show that a credit was moved from your savings to purchase the airplane. So now you have more property. But then you say, okay, $40 million deduction. And you let the system know. So now you're only going to be taxed on 10 million instead of 100 million, because you spent 50 million on property and 40 million on an airplane. And that's why some of them just spend the whole amount, deduct everything, and they get it back in property and in return on investment. Because now you got the airplane, the conveyance, and the property that you've deducted all three of those, and you're going around and you're letting people know the good news about whatever it is that your company does. Well, then people are giving in to your company. So your company's net worth is growing, and you've taken in a certain amount with your company. Plus, you've got these assets, okay? They're assets when you deduct them. But Empress Gloria, what you were talking about when you had the business and they came in and just came in, when they saw that you were not deducting the conveyance and the domiciles, and you were buying things and not deducting them, they knew that you were not growing your estate. So they said, okay, there's no productivity here. It has to go. It has to go. And it was designed that way for all of us in that previous era. There's only one or two who did well, and even after that, if you look at them today, they're suffering. Their finances are suffering, not them, but their finances are suffering, because that system was not meant for us, the heirs, to get wealthy and stay wealthy for generations. It wasn't meant for that. They knew we were going to create our own system. Just like our Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, in the 2000s, the Moors are going to come into their own system. He didn't say system, he said their own. That's truth. Our system is designed for us to have generational wealth. And see, here's the thing, even about the airplanes and the domiciles and things like that. So let's say you've taken that deduction, you got the property, and now you know that property is paid for because you've already taken the deduction for it. Now here's the thing. Let's say your company took in 100 million and you bought a fleet of conveyances and a fleet of airplanes and several company domiciles, so that when people come, they can stay at these domiciles or whatever it is. And you spent 200 million to get those things. Well, you claim the 200 million, and then you get a refund on the 100 million. So now you got all this property. You've taken the deduction for the 200 million, but you still got all this property. You took the deduction. You spent more because you and the bank have a relationship. So the bank is saying, well, we saw your taxes from last year. We know you know how to take a deduction. So we will go ahead and front you the 200 million to get, or the extra 100 million, so that you can get the things that you're getting. You take it off of your taxes, And then when your tax refund for that other $100 million comes in, you just give it back to us. Well, on top of that, you've got business that you're doing that's bringing in. So you're going to grow your business and your estate so vast and so quickly that everybody around you is going to benefit and prosper from what you're doing. But see, we didn't know this thing. When you go out to eat, when you go to these restaurants and things, and you have a company dinner, that's deductible. When you go out to eat and you take your family out, that's deductible because your family works with you. So then they become an asset to your business. And then together you all go and conquer the whole earth together. And to me, this Congress is kin. And I'll use the term family, but I'll spell it a little differently because doesn't mean the same thing. For us, it just means of the same bloodline, birthright, and we love each other and we're close and we do things together. So this is how it was all being done in the previous era. You know, when the subject that was previously doing business as Donald Trump starts talking bad about Hillary Clinton, you know, the subject that was doing business as Hillary Clinton, in reality, when they go backstage, they're meeting at each other's house, playing golf, eating together and all of that, because they already know they're doing it together anyway. So that's why people keep talking about the 13 families. Come on, y'all. We know who that is. But even if you look at the way the previous era was set up, it was still the same way. They enacted that pretty well. They enacted that pretty well. And again, there's nothing sinister about us working together like that. We came together to create the system. We came together for that. We unified for that. And that's where the unity is so key and so important. And I'm going to tell you about this. Unity means that egos had to be tempered and put in their proper proportion, because they're not necessary in that manner when you're dealing with one another. They're just not. We keep the ego energy, but it's right-sized. So the internal revenue system, this is why for Moors, for you specifically, for us specifically, this is why the name and the internal revenue were meant to just, they had people running from it. Moors were like, no, that's colonialism, because they knew when we created our own system, our own internal revenue, and our own names, when we create our own names and own them, they knew that it was a wrap. It was a wrap. And guess what? We start now with all of that. We start right now with all of that. All of it. All of it. So one final question, and it's a couple of questions in one. Knowing what we know today, if you gathered up all the money in the world and redistributed we say retributed it evenly out to everyone, would have 99% of that money what small group would have 99% of it in a very short period of time? Would it be consumers, those who just consume? Empress Gloria, I'm with you on this, because in the previous era's enactment, we did the same thing where we bought conveyances and did not deduct them because we didn't know to deduct them. And we saw on the form to do that, but we didn't know what that meant. And no one was going to tell us. Is it the flossers, the ones that's just buying things, not deducting anything, don't know how to claim anything, don't know how to use their system? They're just flossing. Or will it be the savvy, responsible, knowledgeable steward heir owners? And I say steward, we spell it that way because that's really the way you spell steward, but others were spelling it with an E in the previous era.
Online and do the lingo.
Yes.
I have to do.
And so, Islam Empress, what were you stating? Islam. Okay. And so that's the question. If all the money in the world was gathered up and then tributed evenly to all of us, if we all started with 100 million, which we do, we have it already. How is that going to work? How will you work and fare? Now, I will say this, Morris. I am willing to share all of the information that the ancestors give me, and they leave it up to us. Share all of this information and how to do it. We've already done everything. Everybody already has 100 million that they can print today. And do you know some people are not even willing to take the time to learn how to print their own money? That means that it's not time for them to do that. That means that there's still something else that they probably need to do. So all that we have stated and all that we know and all that we're doing is simply just to grow the estate, continue to grow the estate, grow it. And here's the thing. To start off, if you have even a computer, you already got 100 million. If you have a computer, you got 100 million. Why is that, Light? Because you have knowledge that's worth that. And here's the thing, and this is something that I wrote down because the ancestors were making it clear that Moors don't have to worry about, this is not something where you start off and you're saying, oh, I don't even own, I don't even have an apartment. I have nothing. If you're hearing this, you got something. You have some knowledge that you can say, there's a form of capital, not a form of capital. There is capital that is called futures. Futures is this, and this is how everybody has 100 million in their trust already. Futures is this. Okay, bank, I'll take 100 million from the bank or from my trust based on the fact that I can replace that 100 million with what I know. I have enough in my bank, memory bank, that's why it's called a bank. I have enough knowledge and information in my memory bank to assist enough people to where that 100 million will be back in your account so quick. We have enough information just with nationality. If all you know is that everyone around you must proclaim who they are and learn the lien process, you got 100 million already. Because all it takes is one lien to put that out there. The bank is going to honor it because you're the bank. You're the bank. That's how come it was so easy for us to say, okay, everybody, 100 million for all the Moors, 100 million for all the Moors. And then as you proclaim who you are and learn these principles of using your system, see, no one has the authority to tell your system no but you. Period. That is why names and the internal revenue system was made to be so distasteful. Because it's a key. Those are keys to wealth. Great, endless wealth. Endless wealth. Are there any questions, comments, wisdom regarding the things that we brought forth? You can star 6 for those who may be new to this platform. Any questions, comments, wisdom? Have we clarified? And I know that we'll speak more about it. We'll open the process up some more. We will that you do the study. I saw 2, let's see, where are those 2? Oh, here. This is something that we will to bring to your, about the deductions, the capitalism and everything. We are entitled to all wealth, all land, all natural resources, and all other on our land, as well as the enjoyment of all of that. We must know how to enjoy our wealth as owners, producers, and planters, and not just as consumers. In other words, consumption means you're doing something that you cannot claim a deduction or an expense or capitalize or something. In other words, if you just go out and buy a conveyance and you can't deduct it or anything, that's consumerism. And 99.9% of the things we do is not consumerism. And consumerism looks a lot like what we're talking about, except the documentation and the paperwork is different. So your neighbor may have bought a brand new, a brand new Land Rover. And you bought a brand new Land Rover. Well, you bought those 2, y'all both bought them, but you deducted yours. System. They paid for theirs by, they work in a job and they said, oh, I worked so hard, I'm going to go and buy one. So they made a down payment and they're making payments. They're not even deducting the payments because all the payments can be deducted also. But they're not doing any of that because they don't have a business or an estate or anything. They just have a job. Well, yours is already paid for, and they're going to work every day hoping someone doesn't come and pick that thing up because they can't make the payment. And yours is paid for right off the bat. You all live in the same neighborhood, quote unquote. You deducted your domicile. They didn't. They work every day for their domicile. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the fruits of that, of that ignorance. You're seeing the fruits of that ignorance manifesting itself in some people's lives because their domiciles are being taken from them because they can't work anymore. Okay? They don't have a retirement. They don't have anything. They don't have anything. Okay? And there's nothing, we're not denigrating that or that's the way they weren't told. They don't know the system. And if you've ever had that happen to you, again, forgive yourself for not knowing. Because now you do know, and you got $100 million at your disposal. Not disposal, for your investment. And we say vest or invest, same thing. And so in the Internal Revenue Section 179 tax deduction, you can deduct any vehicle over 6,000 pounds, 100% deductible from your commercial earnings for that year. If my commercial earnings were $40,000 and I bought a $90,000 conveyance and I deducted that $90,000, that's $50,000 right there left over that's coming back. That's a credit sitting on that account, a credit. See, it was the Internal Revenue System account that was actually the real bank account. So when people talk about a Treasury Direct account, it really had to go through the Internal Revenue System. It had to. And the Treasury was looking at that. And guess who wasn't using theirs? We were not. This is why, quote unquote, preachers, and I listen to them talk about this a lot because it's very, very inspiring. They kept buying airplanes, and every year or every 2 years they would get a bigger one. But then they would donate the other one to, or sell it. I know they had to be selling it. They would sell it to their buddy who had a smaller church. And then they would get a big one immediately, because if you go from a $40 million airplane to a $100 million airplane, that's a $60 million difference in the deduction. So now you got $60 million sitting in an account. So Empress Aisha, what you talked about double and triple, it's in the Biblios, it's in the Bible. This is how that 7 times 70 and 100 times 100-fold. And I believe Deuteronomy, the 1st chapter, verse 11, says 1,000-fold. 1,000-fold. And see, here's the thing. Remember, Morris, those ones that did that kind of stuff were claiming to be white. Claiming to be white. Now, let me say this too about that. Think about our brothers who, I'll just use one of them as an example. And, you know, we're not mad at anybody. We just want to point this out. Our brother, Thomas Jakes, they renamed him T.D. Jakes. If you'll notice, he was not talking about an airplane. They did not let him know about that deduction piece. They didn't tell him about that. They didn't tell him. A lot of that stuff he did not know. Why? Because he was claiming black status. And then there's another one, our brother Creflo Dollar. They were not going to let him buy another plane. They were not going to let him buy another one because he didn't deduct the first one. He had the people paying for it. So his mentors made sure that he didn't know about that deduction. They made sure. But his mentors were claiming to be white. His mentor was Kenneth Copeland. And Kenneth Copeland made sure that there were certain things he did not know. And not only that, Creflo Dollar was paying tithes to Kenneth Copeland. So, you know, and again, we're not mad at them. We just looked at it and saw what we saw and know what we know. And they've spoken those things over the airways in that enactment. So now we know. This is how corporations like, quote unquote, Donald Trump and all of them did not pay a dime in taxes. Not only did they not pay a dime in taxes, but they came into the year with credit, hundreds of millions in credit. Some of them had billions and billions and billions in credit. And see, with that much credit, a bank doesn't have to give you a loan because your internal revenue account, which is a treasury account, by the way, it's got 150 million sitting in it of deductions that you took from last year. So all the bank needed to do was look at that and say, okay, well, you got you quite a few deductions. Here you go. You need 150 million a year. You got it. We know you're good for it. And the bank can literally get that from, they're creating it. The bank can create it and say, okay, that deduction is gone. It's gone off your books and it's on our books. So that means you paid everything back. More, that's why the prophet said what he said about children, you're just plain rich. Because you are. You are. Another form of capital, aside from futures, because futures just says everything that I produce in the future up to 100 million is will take care of this, whatever the bank moves or transfers. Everything up to 100 million. So you get 100 million from the beginning, and then you just deduct and do what you're doing. Everything that you buy must be either a deduction or expense on an expense account, or capital that can be done, expensed or deducted. Because again, the internal revenue system that you control and that you are govern is going to do what it's supposed to do. So even lease payments. Oh, here's 179, everybody. Anything over 6,000 pounds. So this is why they kept showing Range Rovers and Land Rovers and things, because that one is over 6,000 pounds. Let me make this smaller. Apologies, everyone. Here, let me make it smaller so it can be in the middle of the screen. Just a moment. Okay. So this is section 179, the deduction section of the Internal Revenue System Code, not the service. We're not talking about them or to them. Anything over 6,000 pounds. What vehicles qualify for the Section 179 deduction in 2023? Eligible vehicles for the Section 179 tax write-off include heavy SUVs, pickups, and vans over 6,000 pounds, more than 50% business use. So you didn't even have to use it for business use 100% of the time. You could use it 50% of the time, and the rest of the time you're visiting family and kinfolk. Obvious non-personal work vehicles. Okay, so that first group, then the second group, which is obvious non-personal work vehicles, dump trucks, backhoes, farm tractors. So for our Moors who farm for us, okay, and provide us with the nutritious foods and things. This is you too. Delivery use vehicles, which is cargo vans, box trucks, etc. So for our Moors that are doing restaurants out of box trucks, this is for you too. Specialty vehicles with a specific use, such as a hearse or a taxi car or things like that. Now let me tell you that everybody knew this but us. Now, and there are going to be there's going to be probably a 1% of the Moors who say, oh, we knew that already. That's what we used to do all the time. But if you were doing it in that previous era, most likely today you're lacking funding because you got used to that system, and it's harder for people who got used to it to get off of it because it's actually called a government. And matriarchs, don't be offended by this. It's a compliment, actually. It was the government tit. When you see people out there that were flossing and showing these big domiciles and things like that, rappers, basketball players, business people, quote unquote, all of that, all of them, somebody in those camps knew this stuff. And kept it from the one, and that's why rappers they were not governing their own finances. Basketball players either. None of them were governing their own finances. Oprah Winfrey governed her finances for a moment. Okay, but the majority of them did not because they were not supposed to know these things. And someone else owned the name. Someone else owned the name. They didn't own the name. Prince and Michael Jackson had the same problem. They didn't own the name. And they contracted with somebody and didn't own the name. And in the contracting, when you say all agents, principals, heirs, assigns, and any derivatives thereof, you can change your name to a symbol. They still own it because of the contract that you signed. And that's why they were having the issues that they had, and they transitioned with a bunch of debt. So Moors, the whole world is our oyster. All we have to do is keep coming together, keep unifying, keep doing what we're doing, and then keep learning, keep studying, keep coming together, talking about the things that are going on in our nation. Stay one and prosper abundantly. And when I say abundantly, I mean super huge, gigantic, abundantly. Are there any questions, comments, wisdom at all? Statements? Have I explained briefly the precept and the concept, not concept, the precept of capital broadly? Hopefully what I stated was clear, or what we stated was clear. We say we because it's our ancestors speaking through us. Now, Moors, listen, hear me out. Islam, thank you in the chat, Islam. You might be wondering how all of this is going to manifest. Don't wonder, we already know. But I am sending out the spell. We are sending out the spell right now that all eyes are open so that you can see your wealth and see your estate and see how to make the next moves and steps to continue manifesting the wealth that your estate is. We send that spell to each and every one who hears what we're stating right now. If that is all that we willed to share this week. There are 7 mountains, and this is from our governmental perspective. As a government, each and every one of us has at least 7 areas or 7 streams of income that we can employ just simply with the basics of the processes that we've shared: nationality, liens, levies, bonds, and banking. The 7 mountains are the education or erudition mountains. So there are some who are going to take this information to our heirs, to the children who are coming up. That's the erudition and education space. And to the adult heirs. The second place is arts and entertainment. This information that we have is going to bliss that whole space of arts and entertainment because it changes the dynamic where contracts are concerned. Ideally, access to the trust in whatever amount it is comes by way of whatever skill or ability or whatever it is that you have manifest. And that can be done on futures. If you want to pursue, or if you will to pursue some type of whatever it is that you will to pursue, you can do that with a futures contract. Government and law is the third. So there will be some of us that will be assisting others in this process. There will be some who will be assisting others in this process. The fourth is religion. And when we say religion, I'll say this about religion and politics, because this is something that those were the 2 mechanisms by which the fraud enactments happened in the last era, is religion and politics. They go together, by the way. Those who enacted coming here, they had 2 items in their hands when they came. One was a cross, like a cross. And that's not a cross, that's actually, it is in the shape of a cross, but it's actually an arched window. A cross in one hand and a flag and a banner for amity and commerce in the other. And they were saying, with these signs we conquer. One is religion, the cross is religion, and that banner was politics. Okay? Religion and politics. That is how all the fraud took place. All of it. That's how all of it took place. So, now that a lot of that has been made known, a lot of the fraud and a lot of all that stuff that was going on, the nobility, there's a noble who put something in the chat. He said Michael Jackson originally planned to buy Marvel Studios back in 2000. He should have known that was never going to happen, because that would be usurping in the wrong system. They have ways. See, the way the system works is that the servants and the slaves and they cannot overtake the creators. They can't overtake it in that system, because that system must always keep a check on the help. Always keep a check on the help. Our system has the same mechanisms, except According to chapter 29 of the Circle 7 Quran for the Moorish Holy Temple for Science, chapter 29 is entitled Magistrate and Subject. So our subjects are they're not enslaved by what we're doing. They are protected by what we're doing. And some might say, well, we don't need protection. I don't need protection. I can protect myself. No, you can't, because it's not your land. It's not your resources. It's none of that. And by nature, you can't protect yourself. By nature. But see, again, that's a status. It's a status. That has to be that way. It has to be that way because it is the natural order. That which comes from us or was created by us cannot and will not ever overtake us. Okay? We are who we are. And those from the previous era created the words Michael and Jackson according to the contracts that the Michael Jackson signed. He signed contracts saying, you created me. And you created this brand. That's why it's called a brand. A brand is something you put on animals. No one brands us. We have titles, not brands. And our property has names. We're the owners, and we benefit from those names and the use thereof. So here is a video really quickly of someone that was previously doing business as a Jew, quote unquote. And again, we're not mad at anybody. We just will to show how things have changed because people know who they are now. So this is a quote unquote Jewish professor complaining about being denied his civil rights. In other words, they're letting everyone know that those that were previously acting like they had sovereign rights don't have sovereign rights. They have civil rights. And they better claim them so that they can get some relief and some remedy. Okay? And then really quickly, I pulled up some information off of Reddit about writing things off, about buying houses and things. And again, Moors, we get to clarify these rules because we are the Internal Revenue System. And from our perspective, everything at this point, and we'll update the rules as we go so that they benefit so that everyone can benefit from them. But here's some information that someone randomly just placed up there. It says this may be wrong, subreddit, but they're talking about how how those people who are on YouTube. Now listen to this, because I was wondering the same thing myself, but now I know how those people on YouTube who are claiming to be vlogger families, video loggers or blogger families who, you know, they're doing reality TV. So now you know how Housewives of Atlanta and all of that, they had people over them who were claiming the deductions on those domiciles and conveyances in the name of whoever was claiming to be the housewife of whomever. And again, we're not mad at them. They just didn't know what was really going on, and they probably wondered why they had to move out once the show was over. Once the show was over, they didn't get to keep that stuff. Everybody knows that. And it doesn't matter which one of those shows it was. Nobody got to keep their stuff because it wasn't theirs. You see? And so a lot of people got a little bit smarter on YouTube and started doing those types of things, claiming things and using the Internal Revenue Service to claim things and to try and get benefits and things of that nature, okay? Not knowing that Internal Revenue Service, which is was an enactment, it's not giving anything to anybody. It's taking things back because the creditors have called in the credit. Okay, the liens, the levies, and then we're bonding our own things, our new things. And so it's talked about how these blogger families of hip, younger adults that are starting families and moving out of their crappy smaller mansion into big modern houses. And then they litter their channel with blogs about building and buying and touring and decorating the house. Now you know how they did it. They expensed all of that stuff. They took a deduction on a house and got a bigger house. It says my business education isn't great, which we don't care about that. But the parts that are important about this is talking about the bloggers. It says, I understand when you run a business, whatever you spend to run it, you can levy against your profits. And they're saying levy, but it's really a deduction against the profits so that you're not taxed on the profits. So you can make as much profit as you will to make, and you're not taxed on it. And when the bank, which is us, look at the the Internal Revenue System records, and we see $500 million in whatever in deductions, we can consider that a gift or something that we can pull from. Let me put it that way: a resource, not a gift, but a resource. So they're saying here, even if you don't sell all the Pokemon cards you get, you can levy the price of them against your YouTube revenue to absorb the cost. These people, all they're doing is showing the Moors how to do what we do. And see, we call it, and this is what we call the report that we send to notify our system. We call it an Internal Revenue Refund Report. That's what we call it. Everything in your trust should either be deductible, capitalized, or expensed on your Internal Revenue Refund Report. And again, this is voluntary, but let me tell you this, just like in the previous era, if you're not learning the system and using the system, even the little you have will be taken, because the system is looking for growth. It's a system, but that's why they called it a beast in the previous era, because it was always looking for more. Just keep growing. And you will feed it, and it will turn right around and boom, bliss you some more. It's your system. It says here, any large asset, including real estate, is held on a business's books as a fixed asset, not an expense. And again, this is someone's opinion, but it's something for us to look at. That includes any expenses associated with the acquisition of the asset. So some people were not claiming the deductible on the down payment on the domicile as well as the payments themselves. This, and again, what they're saying here is even the acquisition of it is called capitalization. The business can deduct the expenses associated with maintaining the house, the domicile, and also deduct part of its capitalized cost each year over its useful life, which is called depreciation. And do the research on that word. All it means is, by simple use of it, if the value is going down because you're using it, then that's depreciation. If the value is going up because you're taking great care of it, that's called a deduction. So for something with a long life, like a building, You can only deduct a small percentage. Oh, that's what they're saying. We say otherwise. But think about this, Morris, as well. They're talking about something with a long life like a building. Our ancestors, even to this day, are still able to claim deductions on the buildings from 5,000 years ago because those buildings are still standing. Still. But guess who has to do that? We do. So you're wondering why the Capitol building was getting a facelift and who was paying for it when no one was there? We know how to do the deduction. It's maintenance on buildings already. And every year you're going to have some maintenance. Even if it's cutting the grass, that's deductible or expensed. So you can pay someone up front for the whole year and just expense it. Tell them to give you an invoice for the year coming. Remember, Morris, we stated that everything is prepaid, right? This is how it's prepaid in our system. So if you received a quote-unquote tax bill, all you have to do is use your person because your person is the creditor person. Their person is the debtor. That's why they keep sending that stuff with minus signs all over it. So restate that statement, use your person, send your fiduciary affidavit, claim it as a credit, and add it to, and show that you've added it to your internal revenue refund report. And I can guarantee you, you will not get any more bills like that because it's actually a credit to you. Now, in conclusion, I will to give you something to think about between now and our next meeting, which is on Sunday. Now that we know that that anything that's out there is a deduction that's actually a credit to us, look how much credit we have to claim already. Look at it. It don't want to reach it, but it will. We're gonna blow it up anyway. Here, let me try it this way. Maybe that will do it. Again, we're not claiming debt. Look at all of this. Now, it's saying here U.S. national debt 0 because we claimed the credit already. We already claimed it. Remember, this thing used to have a number like 33 trillion or something of that nature. Hold on just a moment. Let me pull this down a little bit, make it a little smaller.
I just looked at this about less than a week ago, and I went back, and it showed like 37 trillion.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because we properly claimed the credit, not the debt. So now it's showing no debt, but we have that much credit. We properly claimed it. We've been doing some work on this end over here. And so all we have to do now, Morris, is keep doing what we're doing, but keep growing and keep knowing and keep studying, stay together, and let's keep moving. Because, see, that 34 trillion doesn't even, that's only, let me see, that's less than 1/10 of the 666 trillion that we put in there. Remember, we put 666 trillion in our treasury. And 34 trillion is not even 1/10 of that. 1/10 of 666 trillion would be 66 trillion. And that's double the 34 trillion. But it's going to say that because we did the right thing.
And not to mention that this debt clock.
Mm-hmm. Nobility, we can't hear you. What did you say?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, the debt clock was not a true reflection or a true accounting of the real debt either. It was way understated, understated, because they did derivatives and they did all kinds of securities and claims on our estates to the tunes of probably hundreds of trillions.
Yes.
Okay, so that 37 trillion was nothing compared to the real debt that they owe. We, the heirs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. So when you see changes like what you're seeing on the screen now, where the thing is zero and things, then you will know that the right things have been done. When you see those kind of changes. Okay. Someone said it was 220 trillion. Yeah. Because see, the Treasury itself and the printing of quote unquote money, according to the writings, was only supposed to be 300 million in notes flying around. It was only supposed to be 300 million. It was way more than that in notes that was flying around. And that's how the other nations, quote unquote, who were enacting being nations, knew that something was off and that there was too many of those notes being printed. They knew because when you do the study on the Treasury, there was only supposed to be 300 million in notes moving around. And they were seeing billions and billions and billions on the paperwork being broadcast on the news, quote unquote. So the other actors acting as nations knew that something's wrong here. J.P. Morgan could not have done a $3 billion deal with Bank of America to acquire First Republic because there's not that many notes that were supposed to be going around. See? So everybody knew. So Moore's, our suggestion is get your documents done, get the 40 documents done, because when you're talking about this much, okay, when you're talking about this big of an estate, everyone should be operating at the papal level or the matriarchal level. It would have been papal level in the previous era, but is it called a maple? Yeah, it would be actually called a maple. It would be at that level, or the level of the highest echelons. All Moors should be operating at that level, and those 40 plus documents will state that for you and help you to absorb into your system the truth of who you are. When you actually write that out or type that out, or and get those documents and put them and seal them and autograph them and put them on the public record, that helps your spirit reorient back to who you really are.
Islam. Did you mention when this changed? Or do you know when? Because I literally just looked at this yesterday. I mean, not yesterday, about 3 or 4 days ago.
Probably this morning.
Okay, because I'm like, I know I just looked at this just a few days ago, and it still had an amount on there, so I didn't know it was going to change just that quickly. But I have been monitoring it.
Yeah. We sent documentation about a week and a half ago, and the documentation is there.
Yeah, because as I recall, we basically dealt with this 7 years ago.
Yeah. Well, we started dealing with it, but the ancestors had so many things that they willed to show us between now and then.
And the debt was forgiven way back then, so why are you still showing it on the debt clock and still trying to act like, that people owe anything? They don't owe nothing to y'all.
Well, they couldn't get rid of the debt until the credit was claimed.
Oh, okay, now that makes sense.
And that's what we've been saying about everything is you can't do away with the old and just have nothing there. There must be some, because nature abhors a vacuum. Exactly. There must be something there.
Right. Oh my gosh. You know what? I was doing some study on securities and understanding them better, because someone probably 15 years ago made some startling discoveries, I'll put it that way, and wrote them out. And while he may not have gotten everything 100% correct, he got enough to where he understood what the system was really doing from an accounting standpoint. And one of the things he broke down was that, look, the real problem is not that they're doing something wrong. It's not that you're being yin-yanged and shanghaied and, robbed and stolen and frauded. The problem is we ain't claiming our stuff, is the bottom line. That's not what he said, but that's the bottom line. We were not doing a proper claim.
Yes, that's why we can't be mad at them.
No, we can't be. And I mean, it's really coming home for me personally. I don't know about everybody else, because I don't know what everyone else studies and when the light bulb turns on. But just in the last, I'm going to say 30 days, every time I pick up something, the light just gets brighter and brighter. And I'm going to tell you, it's shining so much, I got to put sunglasses on to protect people around me.
Yes.
If you get that.
Yes.
It's great. But making a claim is really where it always was, but we couldn't do it because we were not in our proper persons. None of us were. So none of us could even make the claim. So it's like, I get it, and I really, really get it.
Noble Phoenix, if I might add, and this is directly from me to you, is you've done so much energy work that the information must come. It can't not come to you because you've done your energy work.
Indeed.
So to all who were at our previous Congress, just this previous Congress that we just had this past Sunday, when we showed you the letter, we'll just put that in air quotes, from the Treasury Securities piece, that thing, it was dated for the end of April, quote unquote. Well, our response to that is why that number is not there anymore. Our response. And it wasn't a response to that, it was really just us, because we just gave commands and sent certain things, sent certain documentation. That's why it's not there. And, usually when we say that and point that out, they'll put the number back up there, but it doesn't hold water. There is no debt. We've stated there is no debt. We just had that energy had to go somewhere, because remember, the debt energy has transitioned and now it's credit energy. It's the opposite of death. Debt and death goes one way and life is the other, is the opposite of that. So we sent some documentation immediately, and that's why I was telling you in the Congress, in this previous Congress, that the things that have been coming through, we know we hit it's like a slot machine almost, and it's not anything that we have not already told you. We didn't send anything that we have not already put in these Congresses. So I have nothing further for this particular meeting. Is there any other statements, questions? Please declare your nationality or your citizen status. And our subjects are okay with being subjects. They're okay with that. They were okay with it over in the previous enactment in England. Islam. Any questions, comments, wisdom?
Islam.
Islam, nobility.
I got a in the chat I said, is there any videos like this one? Do you have another video like this that will go into detail about how to claim your deductions?
Yes, there are. However, claiming the deductions and actually having them honored by our system is going to require that nationality be declared, that the lien process be done, that the levy and the bond process be done on the all caps name and on your estate.
Okay, I know where it is. I got that one. Thank you.
You got them?
Oh, by the way, Midtown South Beach, Chicago, Arizona territory.
Great rising nobility. Glad to hear your voice, Islam.
And now you.
Islam. So our system is ready to increase, enhance, and just grow our estates by our word. We'll go into this some more as far as deductions and things are concerned. And again, we're starting fresh. So for those who you were claimed, there was some claim that you owed taxes, that's actually a credit that you must claim as a credit because you've declared your nationality and you are the author and the finisher of your person. So we'll be talking more about that over these next few Congresses. Our next Congress is, as usual, on Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So for those who will to attend. And with that being stated, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Islam.
Islam. Grand Rising.
Islam.
Empress.
Islam. Say again, nobility.
Your package should have been there. I checked the tracking on it. It said it tried to deliver it yesterday or sometime today.
I did receive a package, but it was from Justice Johnny.
Yep. They said they tried to deliver it. It was at Federal Way post office, and they tried to deliver it yesterday or sometime today.
Okay. I'll check again after the meeting. I'll check after the meeting because packages are coming. So, yeah.
No, we sent your box, so it should be there.
Okay. We shall check. I'll go as soon as this meeting is over. I'll go out and check. Islam. Thank you, nobilities.
Islam.
Empress.
Because we are going forward with this topic, I would like to humbly request how to do the report going forward. I'm keenly interested in knowing how to do the report. So thank you very much. I appreciate all that you offer. Thank you.
Islam, and thank you too for your energy. It's amazing, actually.
Islam, I second that.
Islam, thank you, nobility. Islam.
I said that. Islam.
Islam, Justice Kansu, great to hear your voice. Islam.
Peace and energy.
Peace and energy as well, nobility. Thank you for being here, Justice Ronnie.